The Zephyrian Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Admiral Kethvar paced before the massive holographic display. The star map showed their most feared weapon, the apex dragon Nethys, as a blinking red dot somewhere in the distant Sol system. For 3 standard cycles, there had been no communication from their greatest living weapon. How does one simply lose a dragon? Council Speaker Vexara's 4 eyes narrowed to slits, her serpentine neck coiling with agitation. Especially one capable of destroying entire fleets? Admiral Kethvar's scaled hands trembled slightly as he manipulated the holographic controls. The last transmission indicated Nethys was investigating. Unusual energy signatures from the 3rd planet, then silence. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the Andromeda Spiral for over 10,000 years, their dominance secured by creatures they had evolved and engineered over millennia. The apex dragons were the pinnacle of their biological warfare program, living starships the size of space stations, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space, breathing plasma fire hot enough to melt through battlecruiser hulls, and intelligent enough to operate independently across vast distances. Nethys was the largest and most intelligent of their kind, measuring nearly 2 kilometers from snout to tail. Her scales could deflect particle beam weapons, her wings could fold space around her for faster-than-light travel, and her psychic abilities allowed her to communicate across star systems. She was, quite literally, irreplaceable. "The humans," whispered Tactical Advisor Rickson, his voice barely audible in the vast chamber. "Intelligence reports suggest that system contains a species that has recently achieved primitive spaceflight." Speaker Vexara's laugh was like breaking glass. "Humans, those pink fragile creatures who haven't even left their own solar system? What could they possibly do to Nethys?" The Tactical Advisor brought up holographic data streams showing intercepted human transmissions. "They appear to be unusual, Speaker. Our long-range scouts report they have somehow achieved nuclear fusion, quantum computing, and artificial gravity without our technological trees. Their development path is completely foreign to any known species." "Impossible," Admiral Kethvar snorted. "No species develops quantum computing before mastering plasma dynamics. It violates every known progression of technological advancement." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into the Admiral's voice. The Zephyrian Empire had catalogued over 40,000 sentient species across 3 galaxy clusters. All had followed predictable patterns of development. All had been easily conquered or absorbed into the Empire when the time came. None had ever presented anything more than token resistance to their apex dragons. The humans, according to their scouts, had been observed for only 50 of their years, a blink of an eye in galactic terms. In that time, they had gone from crude chemical rockets to establishing colonies throughout their solar system. More disturbing, they had done so while apparently engaging in constant warfare among themselves, developing weapons and tactics at a pace that alarmed even hardened Zephyrian military analysts. "There's something else," Rickson continued, his voice growing even quieter. "The energy signatures that attracted Nethys. Our deep space monitoring stations detected massive quantum fluctuations around the 4th planet in that system. The humans call it Mars. Whatever they're doing there, it's generating power levels that rival our own planetary fusion cores." Speaker Vexara rose from her ceremonial throne, her massive form casting shadows across the chamber. At nearly 4 meters tall, she was imposing even by Zephyrian standards, her bioengineered physiology marking her as one of the Empire's ruling caste. "Send a battle fleet to retrieve Nethys immediately." "Speaker," Admiral Kethvar hesitated. "Perhaps we should consider diplomacy first. If these humans have somehow managed to capture or harm Nethys, rushing in with military force might what?" Vexara's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. "Are you suggesting that a pre-Starflight species poses a threat to the Zephyrian Empire?" The Admiral's silence spoke volumes. The truth was, none of them knew what to think about the humans. Every piece of intelligence they gathered painted a picture of a species that should not exist, too aggressive to have survived their own nuclear age, too fragmented to have achieved spaceflight, too primitive to be generating the energy signatures their sensors detected. Yet there they were, spread across multiple worlds, apparently thriving in environments that would kill most species, and now somehow connected to the disappearance of their most powerful weapon. "I recommend a reconnaissance mission first," Rickson interjected carefully. "A small fast ship to assess the situation. If Nethys is simply delayed. We avoid an unnecessary provocation. If something has happened to her, we'll have intelligence for planning our response. The speaker's eyes narrowed further. You speak as though these humans might actually be capable of threatening us. I speak as a tactical advisor who has seen too many empires fall because they underestimated unknown variables. Rickson replied with more courage than most possessed when addressing the speaker directly. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the life support systems. Through the massive windows, the lights of the Zephyrian homeworld stretched to the horizon, a testament to 10 millennia of technological supremacy. Floating cities housed billions of citizens across dozens of species, all serving the Empire's endless expansion. But in this moment, that vast civilization felt suddenly fragile. The disappearance of Nethys was more than the loss of a weapon. It was the first crack in their certainty that they were the apex predators of the galaxy. Very well, Speaker Vexara finally decided. Send the reconnaissance ship, but prepare the 5th Battle Fleet for immediate deployment. If these humans have harmed Nethys, they will learn why the Zephyrian Empire has never known defeat. As the council dispersed, Admiral Kethvar remained before the star map, staring at that distant red dot marking Nethys's last known position. Something deep in his military instincts whispered warnings he couldn't quite articulate. In all his centuries of service, he had never encountered a tactical situation where their intelligence was so limited, their assumptions so challenged. The humans were an unknown quantity in a galaxy where the Zephyrian Empire had eliminated all unknowns long ago. And somewhere in that distant solar system, their greatest weapon had simply vanished. Whatever they found when their ships finally reached Earth, Admiral Kethvar suspected it would change everything. Commander Sarah Chen had seen some strange things in her 15 years with the Mars Colonial Defense Force, but nothing quite like the massive creature that had crash-landed in Olympus Valley 3 days ago. The impact crater stretched nearly a kilometer across, and the thing sleeping at its center defied every law of biology she'd ever learned. Vital signs are still stable, reported Dr. James Walsh, the xenobiologist who'd been flown in from Earth the moment they'd transmitted the first images. Heart rate equivalent to roughly 60 beats per minute, brain activity suggesting REM sleep cycles, and core temperature maintaining at exactly 42 degrees Celsius. Sarah adjusted her environmental suit and checked the atmospheric readings again. The creature, whatever it was, seemed to be breathing the thin Martian atmosphere just fine, which should have been impossible for anything larger than a microbe. Its scales shifted color subtly in the filtered sunlight, cycling through deep purples and blues that reminded her of Earth's aurora. Any response to the translation algorithms? She asked. Dr. Walsh shook his head. The neural interface is detecting massive psychic activity, but it's like trying to decode a quantum computer with an abacus. Whatever this thing is thinking, it's operating on frequencies we've never encountered. The creature stirred slightly, one massive eye-opening to regard the small team of humans who had been maintaining a respectful distance. The eye was the size of a hover car, with an iris that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. Intelligence looked back at them, ancient, powerful, and surprisingly curious. Ma'am. Lieutenant Torres approached with his tablet displaying the latest sensor readings. The energy signature is spiking again. Whatever this thing is, it's not just biological. Our quantum sensors are detecting technology integrated at the cellular level. Sarah nodded grimly. They'd suspected as much. The creature's arrival had triggered every deep space monitoring station in the solar system. The quantum displacement alone had briefly overwhelmed Mars's fusion grid, and the exotic particles detected in its wake suggested technology far beyond human capability. The dragon, for lack of a better term, was clearly artificial, or at least heavily modified. Its wings, when folded, contained geometric patterns that seemed to bend light around them. Its scales weren't just armor, but appeared to be some kind of advanced metamaterial, capable of energy absorption and redistribution. Most disturbing of all, its neural activity suggested a brain the size of a small city, with processing power that made Earth's best quantum computers look like pocket calculators. "Commander," Dr. Walsh called out urgently, "it's trying to communicate." The psychic pressure hit Sarah like a wave, not painful but overwhelming in its scope and complexity. Images flooded her mind. Vast fleets of impossible ships, worlds burning under plasma fire, species kneeling before serpentine creatures with 4 eyes and scales like living metal. And through it all, a sense of confusion, loss, and growing understanding. Why do you not flee? The voice in her head was ancient, feminine, and carried the weight of stars. Do you not know what I am? Sarah steadied herself and spoke aloud, hoping the creature could understand. We know you're not from here. We know you're probably more powerful than anything we've ever encountered. But you're hurt and you're alone, and we don't abandon anyone in need. The dragon's massive head tilted, studying her with an expression that somehow conveyed bewilderment. I am Nethys, apex dragon of the Zephyrian Empire. I have destroyed fleets. I have burned worlds. I am a weapon of conquest. Maybe, Sarah replied, surprising herself with her calm tone. But right now you're a long way from home and you look like you could use some friends. Friends? The concept seemed to perplex the dragon. I do not understand this word as you use it. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, his hands raised peacefully. Nethys, why did you come to our solar system? Images flashed through their minds again. Energy readings that had caught the Empire's attention. Quantum signatures unlike anything in their databases. The curiosity of an apex predator investigating something new. But mixed with these memories were newer sensations. The strange experience of observing humans working together without conquest as a goal. The bizarre sight of different human subspecies cooperating instead of enslaving one another. The incomprehensible idea of creatures building things together rather than simply taking what they wanted. Your species. You fight among yourselves, yet you do not conquer. You have power to destroy worlds, yet you build gardens. You reach for stars, yet you care for the weak. I do not understand what you are. We're human, Sarah said simply, and we're still figuring that out ourselves. Lieutenant Torres interrupted with an urgent transmission from orbit. Commander, we've got incoming ships. Unknown configuration, but they're big and they're fast. ETA approximately 6 hours. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The dragon's expression changed. Massive features shifting to something that might have been concern or fear. My people come for me. You must flee. When they discover I am here, they will assume you have captured me. The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate. They will sterilize this world. How many ships? Sarah asked Torres. Sensors show 12 large vessels, ma'am. Each one about the size of Luna City. The dragon's distress was palpable now. Her psychic emanations carrying notes of genuine fear. Not for herself, but for the small group of humans who had shown her kindness when they should have shown terror. You do not understand. I am their greatest weapon. If they believe you have somehow defeated me, they will respond with overwhelming force. Entire species have been eliminated for less. Dr. Walsh looked between Sarah and the dragon. Nethys, could you tell them we're friends? That we helped you? They would not believe such a thing possible. No species has ever aided a dragon of the Empire. All flee or attempt to bargain or surrender. None have ever offered friendship. Sarah made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. Then maybe it's time they learned something new. Nethys, would you be willing to help us show them what humans are really like? The dragon's massive eyes widened, and for a moment her psychic emanations carried something that might have been hope. You would trust a weapon of the Empire, even knowing what I am capable of. You crashed here 3 days ago. If you wanted to hurt us, you would have done it already. Besides, Sarah grinned despite the gravity of the situation, everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be, even apex dragons. As the alien fleet drew closer to Mars, something unprecedented was about to unfold. Not a conquest, not a rescue, but the first meeting between the Zephyrian Empire and a species that would challenge everything they thought they knew about power, loyalty, and what it meant to be truly civilized. Captain Zelthok stood on the bridge of the reconnaissance vessel Void Piercer, his 4 eyes focused on the tactical display showing the human settlements scattered across the red planet below. The fleet had arrived expecting to find either their apex dragon in distress or evidence of her destruction. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption in their military databases. Sir, reported his sensor officer, Nethys is alive and unrestrained. She appears to be conversing with the local inhabitants. Captain Zelthok's scaled features twisted in confusion. Conversing? Clarify your report. Psychic emanations suggest active communication between Nethys and several humans. No signs of coercion, no containment fields, no weapons trained on her position. She appears to be resting voluntarily in their presence. The captain's military training warred with the evidence before his eyes. In 10,000 years of Empire history, apex dragons were weapons of conquest, not diplomacy. They didn't rest in alien company. They either dominated or destroyed. Open a channel to Nethys immediately. The psychic connection established within moments. But what came through was unlike any communication Zelthok had ever received from an apex dragon. Instead of the usual cold authority and predatory confidence, Nethys's mental voice carried notes of uncertainty, curiosity. Zelthok, I wondered when the Empire would send someone to retrieve me. Nethys, what is your status? Are you under duress? Have the humans somehow managed to capture or control you? A pause that lasted several heartbeats. I am learning. Explain. Instead of words, Nethys transmitted images directly into the captain's mind. Humans working together to repair her damaged wing membrane using some kind of biocompatible polymer they'd synthesized specifically for her physiology. Humans sharing their food with her, despite having limited resources on their frontier world. Humans sitting near her massive form simply talking, sharing stories of their worlds and their dreams. Most disturbing of all, humans who showed no fear of her despite clearly understanding what she was capable of. They are not like the others, Zelthok. They do not flee. They do not attempt to bargain for their lives. They do not offer tribute or surrender. They offered friendship. Captain Zelthok felt his understanding of the universe shift slightly. Friendship? That's not possible. You are an apex predator. They are prey species. There can be no friendship between predator and prey. That is what I thought as well. But watch. Through Nethys's eyes, Zelthok observed something unprecedented. A human female, the one they'd identified as the local military commander, was standing directly beneath Nethys's massive head, completely vulnerable to instant incineration, calmly discussing defensive strategies. Not strategies for defending against Nethys, but strategies for defending Nethys against the incoming Imperial fleet. They seek to protect you. Zelthok's voice carried genuine disbelief. From us? Do they not understand what we are? They understand perfectly. They have observed our fleet, analyzed our capabilities, and concluded they cannot defeat us in conventional warfare. Yet they refuse to surrender me to what they perceive as my captors. Your captors? Nethys, you are a weapon of the Empire. You serve the Emperor's will. Another pause, longer this time. Do I? Or have I simply never been offered an alternative? The implications of that question sent shockwaves through the bridge crew. Captain Zelthok found himself facing a possibility that had never been considered in any Imperial tactical manual. What if their weapons chose to stop being weapons? Nethys, you will return to the fleet immediately. We have our orders, and what if I refuse? The question hung in the psychic link like a quantum bomb. In all of Imperial history, an apex dragon had never refused a direct order. They were conditioned from birth, their loyalty reinforced through biological and psychological programming that made rebellion theoretically impossible. Yet here was Nethys, the greatest of their kind, asking what if? Captain Zelthok made a command decision that would be analyzed by military historians for centuries to come. Instead of demanding immediate compliance, he decided to understand what had changed his most powerful weapon. I'm coming down to the surface. Maintain current position, but do not engage the humans unless directly threatened. His officers stared at him in shock. Sir, protocol requires we maintain fleet formation and demand immediate return of Imperial property. Protocol, Zelthok said slowly, doesn't cover this situation. When facing unprecedented circumstances, a commander must be willing to gather intelligence personally. An hour later, Captain Zelthok's shuttle touched down in Olympus Valley, and he got his first close look at the species that had somehow managed to do the impossible. The humans were smaller than he'd expected, fragile-looking with no natural armor or weapons. Yet they moved with confidence around Nethys, treating her presence as natural and welcome. Commander Sarah Chen approached his shuttle, flanked by 2 guards but showing no signs of hostility. When she spoke, it was in accented but comprehensible galactic standard. Captain Zelthok, I presume. I'm Commander Chen. Welcome to Mars. You speak our language. Nethys has been teaching us. Amazing teacher, actually. Did you know she's memorized the entire cultural histories of over 300 species? We've been sharing stories. She's particularly fascinated by our mythology and literature. Zelthok looked toward where Nethys rested. her massive form surrounded by humans going about their daily activities, as if having a 2-kilometer dragon as a neighbor was perfectly normal. She has been sharing cultural information, among other things. Captain, I think there's something you need to understand about your dragon. She's not just a weapon, she's a person, and she's been asking some very important questions about what she wants her life to be. As if summoned by their conversation, Nethys's mental voice reached them both. Zelthok, these humans have shown me something I never knew existed. They have shown me choice. The captain felt the foundations of his worldview beginning to crack. Choice? You have always served the Empire willingly, have I? Or have I simply never known there were alternatives to service? These humans fight, but they fight for each other. They build, but they build for future generations. They explore, but they explore out of curiosity rather than conquest. They have shown me what it means to choose one's own purpose. Commander Chen stepped closer, her expression serious but not hostile. Captain, we're not trying to steal your dragon or turn her against you, but we've offered her something your empire apparently never has. The right to decide for herself what she wants to be. And in that moment, Captain Zelthok realized he was facing something far more dangerous to the Empire than any military force. An idea. The idea that their apex weapons might be people rather than tools, and that people, given a choice, might choose something other than conquest. Captain Zelthok spent 3 hours on the Martian surface, and those 3 hours shattered everything he thought he knew about warfare, loyalty, and the nature of civilization itself. He watched humans working alongside Nethys to calculate optimal flight patterns for atmospheric entry. He observed them sharing meals with her, their tiny forms dwarfed by her massive presence, chatting about everything from quantum mechanics to their favorite childhood stories. Most unsettling of all, he watched Nethys laugh. He hadn't even known apex dragons were capable of laughter. The sound was like distant thunder mixed with wind chimes, and it came when a human engineer named Rodriguez accidentally tripped over his own equipment while explaining how their fusion reactors worked. Instead of viewing the clumsiness as a sign of weakness, Nethys found it endearing. They make mistakes, Zelthok, Nethys explained as they communicated privately. They admit when they don't know something. They ask for help. They give help freely. It's refreshing. This is madness, Zelthok replied. They're prey species. Their behavior should trigger your hunting instincts. Should it? Or have I been conditioned to see all other species as either threats or resources? These humans have made me question everything about how the Empire views the galaxy. Dr. Walsh approached them, tablet in hand, his expression excited. Captain, I know this might seem forward, but would you be willing to share some information about Zephyrian biology? Nethys has been telling us about your Empire's biotechnology, and frankly, we're fascinated. We think there might be some beneficial exchanges possible. Zelthok stared at the human scientist. Beneficial exchanges? Trade, scientific collaboration, cultural exchange. We're not interested in your weapons technology, but your medical advances, your environmental restoration techniques, your space-folding travel methods. Imagine what we could accomplish working together instead of fighting. The Empire does not collaborate, Zelthok said automatically. The Empire conquers. Why? Commander Chen had joined the group, her question simple but devastating in its directness. Because that is how civilizations advance. The strong dominate the weak, is it though? Chen gestured toward the bustling human settlement around them. We've never conquered anyone and we've made it to the stars. We've never enslaved another species, and we've developed technologies that impress even Nethys. We've never destroyed a world and we've learned to make dead ones bloom with life. Maybe there's more than one way to advance. Zelthok's communication implant buzzed with an urgent message from his fleet. Admiral Kethvar's face appeared on his personal display, the Admiral's expression grim. Captain, what is your status? Why has Nethys not returned to the fleet? Admiral, the situation is complex. I recommend you come to the surface personally. The situation is simple, Captain. We retrieve our apex dragon and determine whether these humans pose a threat to the Empire. If they do, we eliminate them. Nethys's massive head turned toward the communication display, her ancient eyes focusing on Admiral Kethvar's image. When she spoke, her psychic voice carried across the communication link with the force of a solar storm. Kethvar. It has been a long time since we spoke directly. The Admiral's features paled. Nethys, are you well? Have these creatures harmed you in any way? They have harmed me greatly, old friend. They have harmed my certainty. They have harmed my assumptions. They have harmed my belief that the Empire's way is the only way. What are you saying? I am saying that in 3 days with these humans, I have learned more about what it means to be alive than in 3 centuries serving the Empire. They do not see me as a weapon. They see me as Nethys. Admiral Kethvar's image flickered as he processed this information. You are having difficulty distinguishing between your designation and your identity. This is a known psychological phenomenon in apex dragons exposed to extended isolation. Return to the fleet immediately for psychological evaluation. Commander Chen stepped forward, addressing the Admiral directly. With respect, sir, Nethys isn't isolated. She's surrounded by friends who value her for who she is, not what she can destroy. Friends? The Admiral's voice carried dangerous undertones. Human, you seem to misunderstand the nature of what you're dealing with. Nethys is not capable of friendship. She is a bioengineered weapon designed for conquest and destruction. Maybe she was designed that way, Chen replied calmly. But people can choose to be more than their original programming. Even apex dragons. The implications of her words hit the Admiral like a physical blow. If Nethys could choose, if any of their apex dragons could choose, then the entire foundation of imperial power was built on slavery rather than loyalty. Kethvar. Nethys's mental voice carried a gentleness the Admiral had never heard before. These humans have shown me recordings of their history. They once enslaved their own kind. They once believed might made right. They grew beyond that. Perhaps it is time for the Empire to grow as well. This is rebellion, Admiral Kethvar said, his voice barely controlled. This is treason against 10,000 years of imperial order. No, Commander Chen said firmly. This is evolution. Dr. Walsh cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange. Send some of your people to spend time with us. Learn about our methods. We could send some of our people to learn about your civilization. Understanding breeds cooperation. The Empire does not cooperate with lesser species. What makes us lesser? The question came from Lieutenant Torres, who had been quietly observing the exchange. We've developed quantum computing without your technological trees. We've achieved stable fusion using methods your databases don't contain. We've learned to work together across multiple subspecies without a single dominant hierarchy. By what metric are we lesser? Admiral Kethvar found himself without an immediate answer, and that silence spoke volumes. Nethys rose to her full height, her massive form casting shadows across the valley. Kethvar, I have made my choice. I will not return to be a weapon. But I am not abandoning my people either. I propose something unprecedented. Let me serve as an ambassador. Let me help the Empire learn what these humans have to teach. And what do these humans have to teach the greatest galactic power in history? Commander Chen smiled. How to be civilized. The communication went silent as Admiral Kethvar struggled with concepts that had no place in Imperial doctrine. Above them, 12 massive warships waited for orders that would either begin the first peaceful contact in Imperial history or start a war that would reshape the galaxy. The choice, for perhaps the first time in Imperial history, belonged not to conquest but to understanding. Admiral Kethvar's shuttle descended through Mars's thin atmosphere 12 hours later, his mind churning with possibilities that had never existed in any Imperial strategic framework. The delay had been necessary. He'd spent those hours in emergency communication with the Zephyrian High Command, trying to explain a situation that defied every protocol in their military doctrine. The response from home had been predictably mixed. Half the council demanded immediate action to retrieve their apex dragon by any means necessary. The other half, led by tactical advisor Rickson, urged caution and investigation. Speaker Vexera had ultimately authorized a limited diplomatic contact, if only to understand what had transformed their greatest weapon into something they no longer recognized. As his shuttle touched down, Admiral Kethvar observed the human settlement with a military officer's eye. Their defenses were minimal by Imperial standards, a few energy barriers, some basic sensor arrays, and what appeared to be hastily constructed bunkers. They could not possibly hope to resist even a single Imperial cruiser. Yet their behavior suggested complete confidence in their position. Commander Chen met him at the landing platform, accompanied by a small delegation that included Dr. Walsh, Lieutenant Torres, and a young human who introduced herself as Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their xenoanthropologist. Admiral, Chen said, offering what he recognized as a human gesture of respect. "Thank you for coming. Nethys is eager to speak with you, and we're honored to host our first formal diplomatic contact with the Zephyrian Empire." "This is not formal diplomacy," Kethvar replied automatically. "The Empire does not engage in diplomacy with pre-Starflight civilizations." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her expression curious rather than offended. "Admiral, with respect, we achieved interstellar travel 6 months ago. Our first ship reached Proxima Centauri and established a research station there. We're no longer pre-Starflight." The Admiral paused. Their intelligence was already outdated.
6 months.
"Our scouts reported no capability for faster-than-light travel." "We don't use faster-than-light travel," Dr. Walsh explained. "We use dimensional folding. Completely different principle, much more energy efficient for short jumps. Nethys has been helping us refine the mathematics." Kethvar. Nethys's mental voice reached him before he could fully process the implications of humans achieving interstellar travel through an entirely novel approach. "Welcome to Mars. Come, let me show you what I have learned." As they walked toward where Nethys rested, Admiral Kethvar observed something that challenged his understanding of species interaction. Humans moved around the massive dragon without fear, but also without submission. They maintained respectful distance while engaging in casual conversation. Children played games nearby, their laughter mixing with the low rumble of Nethys's contentment. "How?" he asked Commander Chen. "How do they show no fear?" "Because Nethys hasn't given them reason to fear," Chen replied simply. "She's been nothing but gentle and helpful since she arrived. Our children see her as the galaxy's largest and kindest teacher. Observe." Nethys directed his attention to a group of human children who were sitting near her front claws, listening intently as she projected holographic images of distant worlds and alien civilizations. "They ask questions I never considered. They wonder why species cannot simply share resources instead of fighting over them. They ask if there are alien children on other worlds and if those children would like to be friends. Children are naive," Admiral Kethvar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Are they? Or are they wise in ways we have forgotten?" Dr. Tanaka had been recording their conversation, her equipment somehow able to detect and translate psychic emanations. "Admiral, may I ask you something about Imperial history?" Kethvar nodded cautiously. "In 10,000 years of expansion, has the Empire ever encountered a species that genuinely welcomed your arrival, that wanted to join voluntarily rather than being conquered?" The question hit him like a plasma bolt. "The Empire brings order to chaos. We offer civilization to primitive worlds." "That's not what I asked." Tanaka pressed gently. "Have any species ever said, yes, we want to be part of your empire without coercion?" The Admiral's silence stretched uncomfortably long. "Species that cannot defend themselves are absorbed for their own protection. And species that can defend themselves are conquered or destroyed." Dr. Walsh exchanged glances with his colleagues. "Admiral, what if there was a third option? What if species could choose to become allies without being absorbed or conquered?" "This is what they offered me," Nethys explained. "Not conquest, not submission, but partnership. They asked what I wanted to do with my life. No one has ever asked me that before." Commander Chen gestured toward the bustling human settlement. "Admiral, would you like to see how we organize our society? We think you might find it interesting." Over the next several hours, Admiral Kethvar was given a comprehensive tour of human civilization on Mars. He observed their council meetings, where representatives from different Earth nations and Mars colonies debated policy through argument and compromise rather than dominance. He saw their scientific laboratories, where researchers freely shared information across cultural and political boundaries. He watched their industrial facilities, where automation handled dangerous tasks, while humans focused on creative and interpersonal work. Most disturbing of all, he saw their military training, where soldiers learned not just how to fight, but when not to fight. Their tactical doctrine emphasized protection of civilians, minimization of casualties, and the pursuit of objectives through the least destructive means possible. "This is inefficient," he told Commander Chen as they observed a training exercise. "Your soldiers spend too much time on ethical considerations. In combat, hesitation means death, does it?" Chen asked. "Or does understanding the true cost of violence make our soldiers more effective at preventing unnecessary conflicts? We've found that the most successful military operations are the ones where nobody has to die." Dr. Tanaka showed him recordings of human history, their wars, Their atrocities, their gradual evolution toward cooperation. We're not perfect, Admiral. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've learned from them. We've chosen to grow beyond our violent past, and that is what they offer the Empire, Nethys interjected. Not conquest, but growth. Not dominance, but partnership. They have shown me that strength can exist without oppression. Admiral Kethvar found himself facing the most difficult decision of his military career. Every instinct told him to follow protocol, retrieve the apex dragon, assess the human threat level, and recommend appropriate action. But his growing understanding of these remarkable creatures suggested that following protocol might mean destroying the greatest opportunity in Imperial history. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked Commander Chen. "Cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, a chance for both our civilizations to learn from each other. Your empire has technologies we could benefit from, and we have perspectives that might help your people find new paths forward." "And Nethys?" "I choose to remain with the humans," the dragon said firmly, "but not as a rejection of my people. As a bridge between them. Let me show the Empire what these humans have taught me about choice, about growth, about what it truly means to be civilized." Admiral Kethvar looked around at the impossible sight of humans and a dragon coexisting peacefully, of a pre-conquest species offering partnership instead of surrender, of warriors who fought to protect rather than dominate. For the first time in Imperial history, he found himself wondering if there might be something better than conquest. The transmission to the Zephyrian High Command took 18 hours to compile. Admiral Kethvar had never written a report that challenged the fundamental assumptions of an entire civilization, and he struggled to find words that would convey the magnitude of what he'd discovered without triggering an immediate military response. The response came faster than expected, and it was not what he'd hoped for. Speaker Vexara's image appeared on the command deck of the Void Piercer, her 4 eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. Behind her stood the full Imperial Council, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. "Admiral Kethvar, your report is either evidence of complete mental breakdown or deliberate treason. You cannot seriously be recommending that the Empire enter into negotiations with a pre-conquest species. Speaker, with respect, the humans are not pre-conquest. They have achieved interstellar travel, advanced quantum technology, and military capabilities that, while different from ours, are surprisingly effective. More importantly, they offer something the Empire has never encountered: voluntary cooperation." Council Member Thesak, representing the military caste, leaned forward aggressively. "You speak of their military capabilities as though they could pose a threat to Imperial forces. 12 ships could sterilize their entire solar system. Could we?" Admiral Kethvar asked quietly. "Our tactical analysis assumes conventional responses to Imperial force. These humans have consistently responded to every situation in ways our doctrine doesn't predict. What if they respond to military aggression the same way?" The Council fell silent, considering the implications. "Furthermore," Kethvar continued, "Nethys's cooperation with them has revealed technologies we don't possess. Their dimensional folding methods are more energy efficient than our space folding drives. Their quantum computing operates on principles we haven't discovered. Their fusion technology produces higher yields with fewer resources. There may be significant benefits to cooperation." Speaker Vexara's laugh was like breaking crystal. "You would have us learn from inferior species?" "I would have us learn from different species," Kethvar replied firmly. "The assumption of inferiority may be preventing us from recognizing superior alternatives. If I may speak?" Nethys's psychic voice cut across the communication link, reaching every member of the Council simultaneously. The dragon had positioned herself where the ship's cameras could capture her full majesty, but instead of projecting menace, she radiated calm authority. "Honored Council, I have served the Empire for 3 centuries. I have conquered 47 worlds and destroyed countless fleets. I know what we are capable of. But these humans have shown me what we could become. Nethys," Speaker Vexara's voice carried dangerous undertones, "you will return to Imperial space immediately for psychological evaluation and reconditioning. Will I? And if I refuse? Will you send weapons to retrieve a weapon? Will you wage war to preserve peace? Will you destroy to demonstrate your civilization?" The questions hung in the communication link like unexploded ordnance. For the first time in Imperial history, an apex dragon was not just questioning orders. She was questioning the entire foundation of Imperial authority. Council member Rickson, ever the tactical advisor, stepped forward carefully. Nethys, help us understand. What have these humans shown you that the Empire has not provided? Choice, Rickson. For 3 centuries I believed I was serving willingly, but I had never been offered alternatives. These humans asked me what I wanted my life to be. No one had ever asked me that before. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through the communication link as she joined the conversation from the Martian surface. Honorable council members, may I respectfully suggest that this conversation represents an opportunity rather than a crisis? Speaker Vexara's eyes narrowed. Opportunity? Your empire has achieved dominance through superior force and technology. But what if there were ways to achieve the same results through cooperation? What if species joined you willingly because they wanted to, rather than because they had no choice? Preposterous, Councilmember Thysic snorted. Species cooperate only under compulsion. Commander Chen's voice joined the discussion. With respect, Councilmember, that's not true. Our own species learned to cooperate across vast differences of culture, ideology, and biology. If we can do it within our species, surely it's possible between species. Your species is homogeneous, Thysic replied dismissively. Dr. Walsh laughed, actually laughed at an Imperial Council member. Homogeneous. Respectfully, sir, you clearly haven't studied human diversity. We have hundreds of different cultures, dozens of different governmental systems, multiple subspecies adapted to different environments, and philosophical differences that span the entire spectrum of possible beliefs. Yet we've learned to work together. And that, Nethys interjected, is what makes them remarkable. They are more diverse than most galactic confederations. Yet they achieved interstellar travel through cooperation rather than conquest. They offer a model the Empire has never seen. Admiral Kethvar sensed an opening.
Speaker, I request permission to establish a limited cultural exchange.
A small team of Imperial observers to study human methods, and a small team of human observers to visit selected Imperial worlds. Let us gather data before making decisions that cannot be unmade. The Council erupted in heated discussion, multiple voices arguing simultaneously in the rapid-fire Zephyrian dialect that the translation systems couldn't follow. Finally, Speaker Vexara raised her hand for silence. This proposal is unprecedented. The Empire does not exchange culture with conquered species. But we're not conquered, Commander Chen pointed out reasonably. We're offering voluntary cooperation. That's something entirely different. And that difference, Nethys added, may be the key to everything. The Empire has grown through conquest for 10,000 years. But growth through conquest has limits. Eventually, you encounter species that cannot be conquered, or the costs of conquest exceed the benefits. These humans offer a path to growth through cooperation. Unlimited, sustainable expansion based on mutual benefit rather than domination. Council member Rickson stepped forward again. Speaker, from a purely tactical standpoint, understanding human methods could provide significant military advantages. Their dimensional folding technology alone could revolutionize Imperial fleet operations. And from a strategic standpoint, added another council member, if they are correct about cooperation being more sustainable than conquest, ignoring their methods could leave us vulnerable to other species who learn these techniques. Speaker Vexara considered for long moments, her expression cycling through anger, calculation, and something that might have been curiosity. Very well, she said finally. Limited cultural exchange. 1 Imperial ship with volunteer observers. 1 human delegation to visit neutral Imperial territory. Duration, 6 standard months. At the end of that period, the Council will evaluate whether to continue contact or classify humans as a threat to be eliminated. Commander Chen nodded gravely. We accept those terms, Speaker. And thank you for this opportunity. And I, Nethys added, volunteer to serve as liaison between our peoples, not as a weapon of the Empire, but as a bridge between civilizations. As the communication link closed, Admiral Kethvar reflected on what had just occurred. For the first time in Imperial history, they were attempting cooperation instead of conquest. The outcome would either herald a new age of galactic civilization or provide definitive proof that the Empire's methods were the only viable approach. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months later, the galaxy held its breath. The cultural exchange had produced results that neither the Zephyrian Empire nor humanity had anticipated. In the Imperial core worlds, Human observers had worked alongside Zephyrian scientists to develop hybrid technologies that surpassed anything either species had achieved alone. Their dimensional folding techniques, combined with Imperial space folding drives, had reduced interstellar travel time by 70%. Their quantum computing methods had unlocked mathematical principles that had eluded Imperial researchers for millennia. More importantly, their presence had begun to change Imperial society in fundamental ways. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the full Zephyrian High Council, no longer as a military commander from a remote frontier world, but as Earth's first official ambassador to a galactic empire. Beside her stood Nethys, the dragon who had become the bridge between two civilizations that should have been enemies. "Honored Council," Chen began, "6 months ago, you agreed to this exchange to evaluate whether cooperation could be more effective than conquest." The data speaks for itself. She activated a holographic display showing the results of their collaboration. Industrial output on worlds where humans and Zephyrians work together had increased by an average of 40%. Scientific breakthroughs had accelerated exponentially. Most remarkably, civil unrest on Imperial worlds had decreased significantly wherever the exchange programs had been implemented. But the most important change, Chen continued, is not in our technologies or our productivity. It's in our understanding of what civilizations can accomplish when they choose cooperation over domination. Speaker Vexara, who had observed the exchange with skeptical interest, leaned forward in her ceremonial throne. "Ambassador Chen, your people have indeed proven useful. The hybrid technologies developed during this exchange represent significant advances. However, the question remains, can this model of cooperation scale beyond controlled experimental conditions?" "It already has," Nethys interjected, her mental voice now carrying an authority that even the council respected. "Tell them about the Andraxan situation." Admiral Kethvar, who had spent the past 6 months shuttling between human and Imperial space, stepped forward. 3 months ago, we encountered a situation that would traditionally have required military conquest. The Andraxan Confederation had developed weapons capable of threatening Imperial fleets. Under normal protocol, we would have mobilized for war. Instead, Chen continued, we propose something unprecedented. Rather than demanding their surrender or destroying their weapons, we offered to share defensive technologies that would make their weapons unnecessary while providing them with peaceful applications for their research. Council member Rickson accessed his tactical displays. The results were unexpected. The Andraxans not only agreed to peaceful cooperation, they volunteered to join a multi-species research initiative. Their weapons technology has been converted into advanced mining equipment that has increased resource extraction efficiency across 17 Imperial worlds. One instance is not a pattern, Councilmember Thysak objected, though his tone lacked its previous hostility. How do we know other species will respond similarly? Dr. Tanaka, who had become the leading expert on interspecies cooperation, answered from her position at the human delegation. Because the pattern is already expanding. News of the human-Zephyrian cooperation has spread throughout the local galaxy clusters. 43 species have requested permission to participate in exchange programs. 17 formerly hostile species have ceased aggressive activities and expressed interest in peaceful contact. And perhaps most significantly, Nethys added, 12 other apex dragons have requested permission to participate in cultural exchanges with various species. The concept of choice, once introduced, appears to be contagious. The implications of that statement rippled through the council chamber. If apex dragons throughout the Empire began questioning their role as weapons, the entire Imperial power structure would need to be reconsidered. Speaker Vexara rose from her throne, her massive form commanding attention. Ambassador Chen, your species has presented us with possibilities we never considered. But possibilities come with risks. If the Empire abandons conquest as our primary expansion method, we risk being conquered ourselves by species that retain militaristic approaches. Chen nodded respectfully. Speaker, we're not suggesting you abandon your military capabilities. We're suggesting you develop additional capabilities. A civilization that can both defend itself and inspire voluntary cooperation is stronger than one that relies solely on force. Consider the mathematics, Dr. Walsh added, his enthusiasm for the subject evident. Conquest requires constant military expenditure to maintain control over unwilling populations. Cooperation creates self-sustaining partnerships that grow stronger over time while requiring minimal enforcement resources. Admiral Kethavar accessed tactical projections that had become his obsession over the past months. Military analysis supports this conclusion. The Empire currently dedicates 40% of our resources to maintaining control over conquered territories. If those territories became willing partners, those resources could be redirected toward exploration, research, and infrastructure development. And from my perspective, Nethys observed, I find greater satisfaction in building than in destroying. I suspect other apex dragons would discover the same. Given the opportunity to choose, Speaker Vexara considered for long moments, her expression cycling through the complex emotions that had become common in Imperial leadership as they grappled with concepts that challenged 10 millennia of tradition. Ambassador Chen, she said finally, the Empire will formally recognize humanity as a sovereign allied species. We will expand the cultural exchange programs to include any species that requests peaceful participation. We will develop protocols for cooperation-based expansion alongside our traditional military capabilities. She paused, and her next words would be recorded as the moment that changed galactic history. But understand this, the Empire is choosing to evolve not because we must, but because you have shown us that evolution can be a form of strength. We are choosing cooperation not from weakness, but from the understanding that true civilization is measured not by what we can destroy, but by what we can build together. Chen bowed respectfully. Speaker, on behalf of humanity and all species who seek peaceful cooperation, we accept this partnership with gratitude and optimism. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Nethys spoke privately to both Chen and Admiral Kethavar. You know, when I first crashed on Mars, I thought I was investigating a potential threat to the Empire. I never imagined I was discovering the Empire's greatest opportunity for growth. What will you do now? Chen asked the dragon who had become her friend. What I have always done, serve my people, but now I understand that service can take many forms. I will help other apex dragons discover what choice means. I will help the Empire learn what cooperation can accomplish, and I will help humanity navigate the challenges of joining a galactic civilization. Admiral Kethavar looked out through the massive windows of the council chamber at the Imperial capital, where human and Zephyrian citizens now worked side by side, where former enemies had become partners, where the concept of civilization itself was being redefined. The galaxy is about to become a very different place, he observed. A better place, Chen replied with conviction. A place where strength comes not from what we can destroy, Nethys added, but from what we choose to build together. And in the depths of space, other species watched the transformation of the mighty Zephyrian Empire with wonder and hope, beginning to understand that the age of conquest was ending, and the age of cooperation had begun. The apex dragon who had wandered to Earth had indeed returned with a human rider, not in the literal sense, but in the form of ideas that would reshape the galaxy forever. The universe was vast enough for all to thrive, if they chose to build rather than destroy, to cooperate rather than conquer, to grow together rather than alone. Humanity had proven that civilizations could evolve beyond their violent origins, and now that lesson was spreading across the stars, carried by dragons who had learned to choose their own destiny.